Kevin Samuels, the man, the legend, is dead. So, here's the reality. Do I agree with some of the things that he said? Yes. Now, in the manosphere, a place where people talk about men's rights and men's issues, and all things that affect men, Kevin Samuels was one content creator who waged a war against unrealistic expectations and women. Now, with that being said, the jokes aside, I'm sure if I watched his content, I would cringe. And to be honest with you, I've already heard some things that he says that I think is pretty ridiculous. But with that being said, he was harsh, he was blunt, and he was honest. And I think a lot of people respected him for the fact that he was honest. And in some sense, he seems kind of fair in that sense. I could be wrong. Maybe I just don't watch enough of his content. But that's not why I'm here to talk about this today. Kevin Samuels is dead, and apparently he had chest pains and collapsed. So, are there a lot of things that can potentially affect your heart? Because if we're talking about chest pain, it's safe to say he probably had some type of heart attack or some type of heart disease. So, what can affect your heart negatively? Saturated fat, cholesterol, trans fat, refined carbs, too much sodium. Too much sodium can cause strokes and cardiovascular disease. Now, what else can help your heart? Getting a blood test and making sure you have all your primary nutrients and all your primary minerals, fats, and vitamins are all at healthy levels. That can also help your body. Lifestyle changes, which we'll get to later, eating a low-fat plant-based diet, removing smoking, exercise. These things can actually help you stay healthy. In one study where people actually took lifestyle changes, there was a 50% decrease in death rate for a low-fat vegetarian diet, 10% fat vegetarian diet, a roughly 50% decrease in heart disease for the people that did those lifestyle changes. But with that being said, let's focus on what may have killed him. So let's just pretend for a second here, because there was a rumor on the internet that Kevin Samuels was mixing dick pills with energy drinks. Now, I think most people, I don't need to provide them evidence that, dick pills can harm their heart. But when it comes to energy drinks, yes, energy drinks can harm your heart. It can cause a heart attack. But regardless, when we're really talking about the subject of, let's say, what could have caused a man in his 50s to have, erectile dysfunction? Because a lot of people might think, oh, well, it's an energy drink that killed him. That's it. Just don't have energy drinks. But could there be something more? Could there be another issue that we're not quite discussing right here, right now? And what it is erectile dysfunction can be caused by atherosclerosis, which is a type of artery disease. And it's also highly correlated with heart disease. And just pragmatically speaking, it makes sense. If your body has problems with blood flowing through its system, you might have problem with your dick, you might have problems with your heart. So here's the reality. Maybe he already had some level of heart disease. Around 50% of patients actually do have some level, that die from heart disease, actually have no symptoms. And when it comes down to it, 1 in 6 teenagers who've donated their hearts in one study, they found that there was some level of heart disease development. And around 51% of hearts that were donated had some development of heart disease. I think particularly atherosclerosis. So when we're talking about the subject of heart disease, there's a very good chance Kevin Samuels had already some level of development. So what is an effective way to prevent heart disease and atherosclerosis? One way is to have a healthy LDL, which is often referred to as bad cholesterol because too much of it is generally bad. And it's bad for most people because it's usually higher than the recommended rate of 50 to 70 LDL. Atherosclerosis, if you want to avoid that, not eating large amounts of cholesterol and saturated fat is a great way not to have atherosclerosis. When we look at societies that don't eat as much cholesterol and saturated fat, we see lower levels of atherosclerosis. This one study found that omnivores had around 123 levels of LDL, whereas vegans had 69 LDL. Good luck trying to get into the 50 to 70 range on an omnivore diet. This one study here has a chart that shows the most ideal range is between 50 to 60 for preventing the growth of atherosclerosis. And once again, tough luck trying to get into that if you decide to eat an omnivore diet. Now, here's the thing. There's lots of things, like I said before, that can cause heart disease. And when it comes down to it, things like saturated fat, cholesterol, trans fat can all help with the development of heart disease. So when it really comes down to it, why not just consider making a shift and going to a full plant-based diet and eating mostly whole foods and eating a low amount of saturated trans fats? The point I'm really trying to get at here is if you want to prevent let's say erectile dysfunction, if you want to prevent having a heart attack, a good thing to do is to go on a low-fat plant-based diet. The only diet that has a chance of reversing a heart disease is a low-fat plant-based diet. And do I think a low-fat plant-based diet has been proven to reverse heart disease? No. But if I had heart disease tomorrow, if my doctor told me like I was developing some sort of heart disease, believe me when I say this, I would remove the cooking oils. I would go on the Ethel-Stein diet immediately. So the Ethel-Stein diet eliminated dairy, fish, meat, and added oils. And out of the patients that stayed adherent to it, there were 198 patients, 177 stayed adherent to the diet. So they stayed on the diet. 0.6% of them had adverse heart effects. That means like stroke, heart disease. The patients that had, some negative heart effect with their health that were not adherent, it was 13 of 21. So 62% of the people that did not stay on the diet had some form of negative heart disease, which was like, a stroke, heart attack, whatever the hell it was. But the whole point in which I'm trying to get at here is the best diet for protecting against heart disease and preventing heart disease from developing is a low-fat plant-based diet. So what is the take-homes that I'm hoping y'all take home from this? There's a lot of people that die from heart disease that have no symptoms. There's a lot of people that develop heart disease and they're not even aware about it. And even children. And even if children are developing heart disease, we really have to ask ourselves, what the fuck is wrong with our society? So what can we do to prevent this? Like I said, lifestyle changes. Drop the cigarette, exercise, avoid saturated fat, avoid trans fat, avoid foods and cholesterol. A great way to do that is to go full plant-based and to limit or remove added oils. So, you can also remove refined carbs and eat a healthy amount of sodium, not too much sodium, and make sure that you're eating a well-balanced diet and you get a blood test and you make sure that you're having a healthy amount of vitamins, minerals, and fats. You may have already seen the cohort meta-analysis essentially showing that people that actually eat more dietary fiber, more dietary greens, they have a lower rate of cardiovascular disease. But whenever we look at vegans, we actually notice that vegans tend to have a lower rate of cardiovascular disease. One of the reasons why is, looking at a meta-analysis of 31 different meta-analysis. So this is like a review of 31 different reviews. People that eat the most amount of dietary fiber have the least amount of heart disease. And out of the 14 of 15 meta-analysis, something that has been shown is that consuming dietary fiber supplements can actually decrease total serum cholesterol as well as LDL. So how about we stop eating animal-based protein that can raise our serum cholesterol, that can raise our LDL, and we start eating greens and plant-based proteins that will actually help keep our serum cholesterol and LDL at a healthy range, that can decrease our LDL to a healthy range. Now, the reality I'm really trying to push home here is heart disease is a big problem. The media will stir up fear about COVID-19, but if you just look and compare heart disease deaths to COVID deaths, if you compare the amount of people that die from COVID and if you compare the amount of people that die from heart disease, it's pretty easy to see that heart disease is in a lot of ways just as bad and potentially even worse. And sure, COVID-19 can be worse if it spreads around and a lot of people die, but just assuming it doesn't, as things are right now, I think heart disease is a real big problem. And it's one of these things that we kind of sweep under the rug because we're already used to it. We're conditioned to accept it culturally. We're conditioned to accept a lot of this junk food and a lot of the crap that we already eat. So I think it's time for people to go plant-based. Take good care of your health. Take good care of your heart. I have not heard one good reason to eat animal-based protein just for pleasure, just because I enjoy it. I have not heard one good reason why anyone should. I think it's time for people to start going plant-based. I think it's time for people to start going vegan. And if there's one more thing I really want to say before the end of this video is, this isn't to disrespect Kevin Samuels. This isn't to disrespect his family. His family or friends might be watching this video and they might get upset at what I'm saying because I'm promoting a plant-based diet. They might see it as me being opportunistic politically. But in reality, whether that is or is not the case, it doesn't matter because I'm pushing something that would actually save lives. So for anyone that's watching this, for anyone that's maybe offended, I'm asking you nicely to pull back your emotions and understand that I'm trying to actually talk about something that seriously kills people, yet people are conditioned to just not care because they eat it on a daily basis. So with that being said, have an amazing 24 hours.